And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside, SPD off. Bring in, SPD off. It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Tingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? We don't need any more of these.
Away from the scheduled splashdown of the Crew-9 crew and Crew Dragon Freedom in the Gulf, right near the Tallahassee area in Florida's Panhandle. I am Sawyer Rosenstein, and I will be joining you for NSF's commentary on today's splashdown events. And you see there, since this is in the middle of the Gulf, we don't really have any people there. So we have our Starbase Live cameras pointed that way in case potentially we see something. But most of the views that you'll be seeing today are NASA and SpaceX. But you won't at least just be hearing my voice. You'll also be hearing the voice of Mr. Ryan Caton. Ryan, how's it going?
It's me again, everyone. Hello. Turns out there's a bit more than the Starlink launch happening earlier today going on this afternoon / evening. Technically now it is on the Space Coast, but yeah, we have got this mission which is many more people than usual have been tracking for reasons I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah, Crew-9 is eventually coming home in about an hour's time, just over 50 minutes now till the scheduled splashdown. Of course, that your mileage may vary with the exact second that happens, but yeah, that's when we're expecting splashdown to occur.
Hence the NET, the no earlier than time. And we have Carson, who'll be behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and bringing up some additional assets that NASA doesn't have, so that we can help tell you the best story of the crew's return back to Earth. So, a reminder, if you have questions, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can. So, Ryan, can you kind of talk us through the timeline here of what we can expect for the next 50 minutes leading to splashdown?
Indeed. So as we can see right now, we have a live view. That is Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. That's SpaceX's SpaceX's former headquarters, should I say. Technically, legally, it's now Starbase, but let's be honest, everything that was at Hawthorne is pretty much still at Hawthorne. So that's what we're looking at right now. Over the next 50 minutes, we're going to be seeing a series of events take place. First up, we will, I'm not sure if we'll see it, if we'll have communications with the Dragon capsule. However, it is scheduled in 5 seconds-ish time for the trunk to jettison from Dragon. That is the cargo module of Dragon. That is essentially a non-pressurized area which allows the vehicle to carry up some extra things to be installed on the station, or some extra science experiments that don't need to be or won't fit within the pressurized area of the Dragon capsule, where the 3 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut are currently residing. So we should be seeing that jettison, or at least receiving confirmation of jettison, very shortly. Then, at 11 minutes past the hour, we should see the beginning of the Deorbit burn. This will be conducted with the Draco thrusters that are actually in the nose cone of the spacecraft, so the vehicle will actually be kind of pointing towards its re-entry trajectory as it conducts that Deorbit burn. After that, it'll then spin around, close the nose cone, and prepare for re-entry, which will then be coming up roughly half past the hour. And then 53 minutes past, that is when the drogue parachutes should be deploying. This is the initial deployment of the initial parachutes. This is what slows the capsule down to a velocity which then allows them to deploy the main parachutes 1 minute later. These are the huge 4 big parachutes that we're very accustomed to at this point. This is what gracefully slows the Dragon spacecraft down for a splashdown currently no earlier than 57 minutes past the hour, just under 50 minutes time.
There you go. And in fact, that
All
trunk
right.
jettison,
Great news there. That
which
the
it sounds like we have
Dragon
confirmation
capsule.
of.
So the cloth was separated. That's the mechanism that connects the telemetry and power between the Dragon capsule and the trunk. In order to expose the heat shield underneath Dragon,
And that trunk is actually super critical for why this will be the final splashdown scheduled on the East Coast for Crew Dragon. Following this mission, all Crew Dragon and I believe Cargo Dragon as well as splashdowns will be scheduled to take place in the Pacific Ocean. And part of it has to do with the fact that right now they just jettisoned that trunk. It will then hopefully totally burn up and re-enter. There are parts, however, that do not completely burn up, as we've seen in the past. The problem is that those pieces have either washed up on shore or landed on land. We have seen pieces of that trunk in Australia. So as a way to avoid accidentally landing more pieces of space debris on populated areas, they are shifting operations to the complete opposite side of the country because that will also change where in orbit they jettison that trunk. So more history on this one as that final East Coast entry approaches. But this is quite exciting at this point. I know there's a lot of stories and things you may have heard about this particular launch, but I think the biggest thing is that Crew-9, they launched, this vehicle has been docked to the ISS since September, right?
Indeed. So Crew-9 launched all the way back in September, on the 28th of September 2024 at 17:17 UTC. That's 13:17 in the afternoon Eastern Time. And it docked a few days later. It's actually docked to the Harmony forward port, which is the front port on the International Space Station, on the 29th of September at 21:30 UTC. So the vehicle has been docked to the station ever since, except for a short relocation period. So on the 3rd of November last year, it undocked at 11:35 and then redocked at 12:25 UTC, from moving from Harmony's forward port to Harmony's zenith port, which is essentially, there are 2 docking ports available to commercial crew program vehicles. That is the forward port, the front-facing port, and then the zenith port, which is on top of the station, using the Earth as a reference. So it relocated to make way for the other vehicles visiting the station. Of course, we have Cargo Dragon, Crew Dragon, and Starliner, which use those docking ports. What is that, the common berthing adapter or something like that?
International docking adapter.
No, I'm talking about what Cygnus uses. There's a different port on the bottom of the station, which Cygnus uses to berth to the station. So instead of actually docking to the station, Cygnus is captured by the robotic arm, and then the astronauts on board actually help wiggle Cygnus into its berthing position there.
Exactly. So yes, that spacecraft originally launched with just 2 people on board. So that was Nick Hague and Aleksandr Gorbunov. It was originally supposed to be a crew of 4. However, 2 crew members were removed to make room for Butch and Sunny to return after Starliner was deemed unsafe to return with crew by NASA. So this mission went up with 2 instead of 4. Sunita Williams had a spacesuit up there. One was sent up for Butch Wilmore. And the 2 of them are now in those remaining seats on their way back to Earth after their launch back in June. 45 minutes to go. A reminder, questions at NASASpaceflight, and we'll try to answer as many of them as we can. I saw Sideshow Bob was asking, how do they unload the trunk? So Ryan, do we know about the trunk jettison there that we just saw?
Well, when they need to access the trunk in space, of course, it's in that unpressurized area, so it's not like they can just, open a door because then all the air will leak out, right? So it's accessible via the Canaveral. And for example, in the past, they have carried up on cargo missions. They've carried up an iROSA, which is a rollout solar array. So for the past few years, NASA has been upgrading the station's power supply. Those famous, huge, big fold-out solar panels that the station has. Those are, kind of 80s, 90s technology. That's very, very not modern technology. So they have been replacing them with much smaller solar panels, but solar panels that can actually generate more electricity because solar technology has improved so much. So that's one of those things that can be carried up in the trunk, for example. But of course, anything in the trunk can't be brought back down to Earth in one piece because the trunk, as we've said, has been jettisoned. That will now burn up in the atmosphere in a few days' time. Or hopefully burn up in the atmosphere. Most of it will burn up in the atmosphere. Fingers crossed we don't get any more debris raining down on Australia as has happened on previous flights.
What is burning right now, though, are the Draco thrusters aboard the Crew Dragon Capsule Freedom, as they are currently in the process of the Deorbit burn. This burn, which is about 7.5 minutes, will place Dragon onto its precise trajectory to re-enter the atmosphere and then splash down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida, which, for those who don't know, that is in the Panhandle, so the northwestern part of the state. That is where Megan is located to scoop up the capsule and offload the astronauts once they splash down. So while this burn is going, it's a pretty involved process once they do get back down. It's not like they can just hop right off and hop on a helicopter and go home. If I understand right, they have a bunch of medical checks that they go through immediately after they get off.
Indeed, Sawyer. So they have a vessel out there in the Gulf, which will then be scooped. Dragon will be scooped up by the vessel. It will then be placed onto what's known as the Dragon's Nest, which is essentially like a padded ring, which Dragon is then laid onto. That will then kind of retract into the boat, and then all four of our crew members today will receive some assistance as they exit the Dragon capsule, because of course Nick and Aleksandr have been on board on station in space for about 6-ish months now, approximately, just shy. And Barry Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams, of course, have been in space for about 3 months longer than that. So they've been up there for a long time. So sometimes, astronauts need to be given a little bit of slack when they get back to Earth for the first time, because they've been in 0G for many, many months. They're now going to be coming into 1G, which is, quite uncomfortable if you've been in 0G for a period of time such as that. So once they disembark Dragon, they will be taken to medical facilities on board that vessel, where they will be examined and checked up just to make sure everything is okay by medical professionals. And then once that has taken place, if they are good to go, either they will be airlifted back to the I'm not sure exactly where they'll go, either to the Tampa or the Kennedy Space Center. Eventually, they'll make their way back to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Or if they need a little bit of extra checkups, just because the medical professionals on board have seen that something isn't quite right, then I believe, as we saw with the return of Crew-8, there'll be, if required, crew members can be taken to nearby medical facilities in Florida, just in case, as a precautionary measure, just for an extra checkup in the event that is required. But either way, eventually, all 4 crew members will be making their way back to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, fingers crossed, sooner rather than later.
Exactly. And as well for Roscosmos cosmonaut Aleksandr Gorbunov, he will then return back to Star City in Russia and get his welcoming home with the Roscosmos Russian Space Agency as well. So, speaking of all these people and the crew, I think now would be a good time to go through who is actually on board, as you continue to see. If you look on their screens in front of them, you can see the pulses coming, that firing of those thrusters as part of the deorbit burn. So as they look at that, and as we take a look at their monitors when we can, how about, Ryan, we take a look at the crew?
First, I was just looking at in the live feed in the top right. I think Aleksandr Gorbunov has fallen asleep already.
As he did,
Either way,
waiting for launch as well in September.
Nick Hague is our commander today. As of today, he has spent 373 days in space. He has conducted 4 EVAs over his spaceflight career. He is a colonel and he's actually active in the US Space Force. And this is his first mission commanding a spacecraft. Of course, originally Crew-9 was scheduled to have Zena Cardman as commander, but back in September, the crew switcheroo took place where Zena Cardman and Stephanie Wilson were reassigned in favour of the return of Butch and Sunny. Moving on to the Roscosmos, Russian cosmonaut on board. This is Aleksandr Gorbunov. This was actually his first flight into space as of today. He has spent 171 days in space. No EVAs to his name just yet, but if he goes back up to the International Space Station or another space station in his time, maybe he'll be able to add one to his title. He's a reserve lieutenant in, or should I say in the British way, reserve lieutenant in the Russian Air Force. He was selected in the 17th cosmonaut group for Roscosmos back in 2018. And as I said, this is his first mission, SpaceX Crew-9. And our 2 new friends for Crew-9. First up is Barry Butch Wilmore, originally commander on the Boeing crew flight test for the Starliner crew capsule for the commercial crew program. He has to date spent 464 days in space, truly a seasoned astronaut, 5 EVAs to his name. He has a total EVA time of just over 31 hours, so he spent over a day outside in a spacesuit in total. He has flown many missions before. Originally, he flew on Space Shuttle Atlantis, STS-129, back in 2009. He's flown on Soyuz TMA-14M, and now the Boeing crew flight test / SpaceX's Crew-9 mission. And on the other side of the Crew Dragon spacecraft is our 3rd mission specialist, that's Sunita Williams. She, of course, was the pilot for the Boeing Starliner crew flight test, which launched last year. To date, she has spent 607 days in space. She has 9 EVAs, a total EVA time of 62 hours and 6 minutes. That is extraordinary. And I believe we heard there for a moment the nose cone is beginning to fold up or close once again on schedule. Yeah, so Sunny Williams is, I believe, one of, if not the most experienced female astronaut. I believe she has more EVA time of any female astronaut, overtaking Peggy Whitson in the during her final EVA of her flight. I believe she did a couple, or at least one EVA, unplanned EVA. But you're on the station. Why not do an EVA? Might as well, go for a stroll outside, get some fresh air.
Yeah,
she was selected.
Commander too.
Indeed, she became ISS commander during this mission as well. She graduated in NASA's 17th astronaut group in 1998. Previously flying on STS-116 and 117, that's launching on Space Shuttle Discovery, landing on Shuttle Atlantis, Soyuz TMA-05M, and of course the Boeing crew flight test / Crew-9. So Butch and Sunny are 2 astronauts who definitely know what they're doing.
Exactly. And the nose cone, as you heard there with the closing, a lot of the forward-facing thrusters along with the docking adapter are located inside that dome structure. So after completing the deorbit burn, they then close the nose cone to make it more aerodynamically stable for the reentry portion and avoid overheating those parts of the spacecraft. So that is why that is closing before coming back. And I think it's important to also note here, this is definitely a long-duration spaceflight. Yes, they started for Crew-9 officially back in September. In terms of records, though, this is not a record-setting mission duration. In terms of Butch and Sunny, they came close, but not that close. The person who has the longest single space flight, and this is not total space flights, but single stay in space, goes to Frank Rubio, who spent 371 days in space. That's followed by Mark Vandenberg, who spent 355. Scott Kelly, as part of the year in space, who's actually spent just under a year in space at 340. Christina Cook had 328. Peggy Whitson had 289. Andrew Morgan, 272. And then we start getting towards the Starliner crew. So it's not quite record-setting in that sense. Their mission obviously was extended a bit, though, that's for sure. So their original mission was scheduled to be 8 to 10 days. and then continued onward, as we mentioned, with the decision not to send crew home aboard the Starliner capsule. But it is worth noting, Ken Bowersucks, at a recent press conference that I was at, he talked about this. For those who don't know, Ken was an astronaut who launched aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour, but then was quote-unquote stuck aboard the ISS after the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. And the shuttle was obviously put on hold for 2 years. So as a result, they sent up a Soyuz for him to return in. And he said that in regards to that gap of not knowing when he would return home, quote, every astronaut that launches into space, we teach them, don't think about when you're going home. Think about how well your mission is going. And if you're lucky, you might get to stay longer. And he says the only time that he ever came close to an argument for the extended mission was arguing with a crewmate about who might stay longer. I just love that quote, so I wanted to put that in there.
And of course, also worth mentioning that the record for the or the record set for the single for a single mission human stay for over 11,000 days now still belongs to Valery Polyakov, the Soviet and then Russian cosmonaut, with 437.75 days to his name for mission Mir EO-15, launching on Soyuz TM-18. Flight, his landing flight was Soyuz TM-20 back in 1994 to 1995 to the Mir space station.
Yep. So again, close but not full records. Let's see. Let's take some of your questions here. While we're talking about Butch and Sunny, Khaled was wondering, did SpaceX make a new spacesuit for both Butch and Sunny? Ryan, you want to take that one?
As a matter of fact, there was actually a spare spacesuit already on the station for, I guess, just having spares, whatever is useful. And both Butch and Sunny both tried that spacesuit on, and I believe at the end of the day, it was Sunny who actually used that suit and is currently wearing that suit as they prepare for re-entry with the Deorbit burn complete. And on one of the crew CRS missions, I can't remember exactly which mission it was, but there was an additional SpaceX suit sent up for Butch Wilmore, more specified to his specifications. The measurements for all of the astronauts are shared amongst, NASA has all of that data already, so that was shared with Boeing when they created their blue suits for the Starliner. Those blue suits actually went back with Starliner for the crew flight test, which of course successfully re-entered and landed at the White Sands Range back in August, September time. So they needed SpaceX suits for the Crew-9 Dragon re-entry and splashdown, of course, so NASA sent one up with one of the cargo missions, I believe, for Butch. So yeah, that is Butch and Sunny both have SpaceX spacesuits.
There you go. And thank you very much for that question, too. They have that up there. That's why they always have backups. You never know.
Indeed, indeed.
And Creative Bytes also answering your question for the record for the longest day on the space station. Hopefully, that answered your question there as well. Here's some support that came in with a question from Magna Raptor, who's asking, do you think SpaceX could put Dragon on a Falcon Heavy and successfully fly a crew around the moon and return? I think two problems come into place here. One, Falcon Heavy is not crew rated, and second, Crew Dragon can't hang out in space on its own that much.
Yeah. I mean, I think the record is probably Polaris Dawn, which was up in space for a week, and that's really the maximum that Dragon can handle. The only reason that these, multi-month missions to the International Space Station can take place is because once Dragon docks to the space station, it essentially becomes part of the space station, right? So its life support systems within the Dragon is then the ISS's life support systems that takes charge of replenishing the oxygen and cleaning out the air inside of the Crew Dragon when it's docked and its hatches open, right? So another thing is the heat shield on Dragon. The heat shield is designed for a re-entry from low Earth orbit. Re-entering from the moon is much, much further away and requires a much, much stronger heat shield. I mean, we even saw on Artemis 1, NASA is still struggling with getting a heat shield that can, not come back all scorched up and burnt up. That's with Orion, of course. You just got to imagine kind of like falling right? So right now, the ISS is in approximately a 400-kilometer orbit, right? So just imagine they're falling 400 kilometers. That's how much they need to. That's how much thermal energy the heat shield on Dragon needs to protect the vehicle from.
Nose
Right?
cone is
400
secured for
kilometers of
entry.
falling. And there we go, NASA confirming that the nose cone has been secured for the re-entry there on time. The moon, however, isn't 400 kilometers away. It's 405,000 kilometers away. So that is 1,000 times further. That would be a fall 1,000 times further. And if I'm getting my physics correct, the thermal impacts of that would be like 1,000 cubed. So this would be a huge change in thermal energy for that kind of re-entry, which means you need a very, very, very beefed up heat shield.
That is, yes. And as you mentioned, one of the biggest things also the oxygen scrubbers, the CO2 scrubbers, excuse me, that clear out the air for them. They only have a certain number of those before they run out, and then they would have to return. So then they can just harness the ISSs, and that helps them a bunch. And coming up shortly, they are about to enter a communications blackout. Essentially, as they get into the thickest parts of the atmosphere, the radio waves will be obscured by the plasma that encompasses the vehicle with the crazy high temperatures of nearly 2,000 degrees Celsius that it will experience on the way back down. So that is known as LOS, loss of signal, and may drop out. Which brings us to a good question. AJ Stewart's asking, Ryan, does Dragon use Starlink?
Not unless you're Polaris Dawn. So unlike Starship, Starlink does, Dragon doesn't have those traditional kind of terminals on board. However, on Polaris Dawn, if you recall, they were actually testing laser Starlink communications. They had a special, I believe they called it the Plaser, the plug-in laser in the trunk of the Polaris Dawn Dragon, which they were using to communicate with the Starlink network. But even though they had this special laser set up in the trunk, they still just had a bog standard router in the capsule, right? Which you can just plug an Ethernet cable into. So they have this really complicated technical laser in the trunk communicating with the Starlink constellation that just plugged into a standard normal router for Starlink, which I thought was quite amusing. And it worked. Polaris Dawn was able to send back, really high quality, video and photos from on orbit, which was really brilliant to see. But for these crew rotation missions, Starlink is not available, but I'm sure there is some other in-flight entertainment. Maybe they can purchase some snacks with their in-flight miles. I don't know.
If only. But yes, we won't get the views from Starlink as we typically see during these Starship launches, as that is not set up fully yet with Crew Dragon. So hence that is part of why we'll also have the loss of signal, the LOS, as they enter that parts of the atmosphere here. So we are getting very close to that full atmospheric interface, as it's called, where the spacecraft will be fully into it, and hopefully we'll get some views from this. Mr. Map,
Entry
what is
sequence.
on said
Report
map?
when ready to copy.
Ready to copy.
All right, I've got some updated times for you. Our COM blackout start time is 2144. Our COM blackout end time is 2151. And our splashdown time is the same per your displays, 2157.
Okay. Understand com blackout start 2144, stop 2151, splashdown per display.
That's a good readback. And with that, please report when tablets are secured behind the elastic bands, restraints are tight, and visors are down.
And copy, Wilco.
I think that may be the end of that communication. We'll just wait to see if the crew confirms. As we prepare for landing, please make sure that your seats are in the upright position and your tray table is stowed.
Yes.
We also recommend you keep your window shade open in the event of an emergency.
The reason, by the way, for all of that, making sure the tablet is extra secure, because as they re-enter and you get into possibly 2 to 3 Gs, so up to 3 times the normal force of gravity. The last thing you want is that coming loose and then accidentally becoming projectile, as well as making sure that you are securely in your seat. So that is why they haven't checked the straps. And as for the visors, once they close the visors, their space suit essentially becomes its own spacecraft with its own oxygen and pressurization in the event that there is a pressure issue during reentry. So by doing so, it gives them an extra chance of survival in the event of an anomaly, which of course we hope never happens. What we are looking at right now, Ryan, by the way, Mr. Map on the left.
To respond to you from earlier, Sawyer, that is indeed the WB-57. That's NASA's aerial imagery plane. It's only at about 17,000 feet. It can go much, much higher, as we see on Starship flights. Either way, let's acknowledge, yes, it is airborne and ready to capture the reentry of Crew-Dragon. We heard some times over the net there very shortly, or just earlier, for the beginning of the blackout period and the end of the blackout period and the splashdown time. Those were in Coordinated Universal Time, UTC, also known in the business as Zulu time. So that blackout will be starting at 21:44 UTC. That is in approximately 11 minutes time. And the blackout end at 21:51 UTC, which is in about 19 minutes time.
There you go. And so hopefully we will get views from the WB-57 plane. We do, just in case, also have our cameras at Starbase taking a look down to see if we maybe catch the reentry as it is going over the Gulf towards Tallahassee. So we will keep an eye on that. Of course, you can always check out Starbase Live to see the cameras there that we have 24/7. If there is a view, we will obviously put that up on the screen.
And also on the right-hand side there, you can see the Follow Dragon tracker. That's actually publicly available on SpaceX's website. So when there is a crew mission like this, SpaceX does this little tracker, and it actually uses like live mission data, right? So you can go on SpaceX's website and track Dragon. There we go. We can see the ISS is now just over Australia. Dragon is a little bit further ahead. Its orbit is lower, so it can travel. It travels around the world a little bit faster than the ISS, and you can see there the line for Dragon is shortly ending as it begins to re-enter over Mexico.
Exactly. It was in an orbital fold away around the Earth. It is now aiming for that. So with that burn that we saw, it is officially on its way down and about 23 minutes away from splashdown. So we are getting very close now. And here's a question from James, who's asking, from the ISS pushback, the undocking, to the splashdown, do the crews remain seated, strapped in, and full suit the whole time? They actually do get some breaks from being fully suited, right?
Yeah, so they have those critical times, right, which is the launch, the docking, the undocking, and the splashdown, the reentry, and then the splashdown, right? Those are the critical phases of flight where SpaceX and NASA really want them to be fully suited up in those pressure suits, right? So the pressure suits, they're not independent EVA suits, they are powered by the capsule, but in the event that the capsule loses pressure, SpaceX and NASA would like the astronauts to remain with us, so they have pressure suits which will essentially inflate like a balloon to keep the astronauts in good health if that was ever to happen. However, in the periods after launch, before docking, and after docking and before re-entry, they can actually remove those spacesuits. They can get out, they can stretch, they can wear something a little bit more comfortable, just to give them a little bit of a rest from those fixed hard shell plates that the spacesuit is made up of. I'm sure it's comfortable because, each suit is prescription made per person's body, shapes, arm length, leg length, torso size, etc. However, wearing the same thing for 3 days straight might not be the most comfortable. But they are in 0G, I guess. So, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, and the International Space Station and Crew Dragon are kept in what's known as T-shirt conditions. So basically, you could be in your normal attire wearing a T-shirt and be comfortable. But, as you mentioned, any critical phase of flight, docking, undocking, any maneuvers, things like that, it's typically they are suited up. Now, 21 minutes away. The NET in the top left, a reminder standing for no earlier than. That is when we are expecting the splashdown to happen in the Gulf right near Tallahassee, Florida, in the Panhandle. And a reminder to those who are asking here, RGA01 asking, is this the last splashdown near Florida? And then they're moving to the Pacific. It is their final one.
Our tablets are secure, restraints are tightened, visors down. We are configured for entry.
Freedom, I copied. Tablets are secured, restraints are tight, and visors down.
Cabin crew, prepare for landing.
By the way, for those wondering what that beep is,
All right,
that
great.
is to indicate that someone is about to speak or has just finished speaking. In spaceflight, it is called a Quindar tone. So, I mean, that dates all the way back to the early days of the space program, but that is what that beeping sound that you're hearing is. It means that someone has keyed up the mic and then someone has let it go. So, those are the Quindar tones. But yeah, as we talked about earlier with the trunk jettison, because of the orientation of which they re-entered to go for a East Coast splashdown, the trajectory for that ejected trunk led it over potentially populated areas. So as a way to avoid any risk of property or person damage, they're moving to the Pacific where that is very less likely to happen. And hopefully soon we will see the return of Nick Hague and the 3 other crew members aboard the capsule here. Let's see. Brady G wondering, do the astronauts get to choose what food they eat while at the ISS and on here? Yes, they do. They absolutely do. There is a tasting that they get to do down at the Johnson Space Center. Pick out what meals are their favorites, and those get sent up on the resupply missions. And then they have choices for dinner up at night. Of course, they'll have some specialty options for special holidays and events like that. And there's also spares that are always up there just in case. But they get their choice of snacks and food, which is pretty cool. So they certainly have plenty to eat. And that goes along with Brady's other question, Ryan, of have they found any long-term health problems for long space stays?
If anything, I think I recall Butch Wilmore saying in a recent press conference that, as people get older, their joints start to ache. But in 0G, they actually stop aching, right? Because there's no pressure being applied to them because they're in 0G. There's no gravity pulling them down. Quick, disclaimer before all the physicists start tweeting at me and saying, well, actually, there is gravity. And they just, you know what I mean. They're in 0G. You know what I mean. So yeah, it honestly depends what kind of things you want to look at. But, naturally astronauts get a little bit taller in space. They stretch out a little bit and then they condense again once they have that the effects of gravity upon them. But it's from what we've seen, those the longest missions that we've as a species conducted so far is about a year. And for those missions, I don't really think we found anything, like nobody's mutated an extra ligament or something,
Right. I mean, there's still absolutely some health issues associated with long-term spaceflight. One of the biggest ones is bone density loss, the longer they are, as well as muscle atrophy, where the muscles get weaker from not being used as much. But that is why the astronauts exercise up to 2 hours per day. They have resistance exercise machines that they can use. They have treadmills. They have weights. All of these different things to keep in shape and to try and limit as much as possible that body damage. So, yeah, for those who remember way back when, from the Colbert Report, it was supposed to name a module after him based off of a community vote, but that was vetoed. And instead, they created the Combined Operational Load-Bearing External Resistance Treadmill, the Colbert Treadmill, which is up there. And one of the other things that they've been keeping an eye on as well is actually eye damage. Apparently, while in space, the shape of the eye actually changes. So that is something that's being studied aboard the ISS. They did experiments with it for the Polaris Dawn mission. Yes, weights, and I guess there would be masses in zero gravity as opposed to weights in zero gravity. But it all has to do a lot with resistance. So,
indeed. I'm also seeing a little bit of confusion in chat. We're not hiding any views from anybody, right? We will show you what is being provided by the official feeds that we're receiving from NASA and SpaceX, right? But unfortunately, we are yet to install our own cameras on Crew Dragon, so we are unfortunately only able to share what NASA provides.
Yep, as well as this animated view based off of live data, provided
Indeed.
By SpaceX. And we will also have any potential cameras we have. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I was just saying Dragon approaching Mexico there. And as you were saying, Sawyer, Starbase Live, We're going to turn some cameras and see if we can see it, but it's quite bright, isn't it?
Yeah, that is one of the issues with this. Is it is very bright out here. It is still over an hour and a half before sunset on the East Coast, let alone the central daylight saving time area. So we'll try, but honestly, you never know. So that's why we're going to go out and look. And of course, same thing for anybody out there. If you are anywhere along that trajectory, so over the Mexico area, around the Gulf, in particular, the areas around Tallahassee, Apalachicola, Steinhatchee, that sort of area, take a look outside. You never know what you'll see. Take a look. If you have a camera and you catch something on video or a picture, send it to us on the socials. We actually would really love to see that. I'm really interested to see if anybody can see it. So that is NASA Spaceflight on X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. We're on all of those. So if you do catch it and you're on any of those platforms, please let me know. So potentially visible from Tallahassee. I see the question about that. So if you think you might see it, go try. And that is my social if you want to tweet directly at me, by the way.
There you go. Just noting we're now under 1 minute from 21:44 UTC, which is the time when we expect the loss of signal to begin. That is the communications blackout. Thank you very much for the graphic, NASA. Just as I was mentioning that. Good timing, NASA TV, or NASA Plus as they're known now. Yeah, so we are just under a minute away now from that beginning. That should happen on our clock at net minus 13 minutes.
Right, and as we were discussing before, the communications blackout occurs because that is when they're getting into the thickest parts of reentry in the atmosphere. The capsule completely surrounded by plasma. The temperature's so hot that gas turns into plasma, and at over 2,000 degrees Celsius, it will obscure radio signals going back and forth between the spacecraft and the ground stations. So during that time, we expect the LOS, the loss of signal, and hopefully we should get AOS, acquisition of signal, shortly after that. So if you hear those acronyms, that's what LOS and AOS mean. The Angry Engineer asking, what criteria dictates this splashdown location? That's a very good question. Ryan, do you want to start tackling that one?
Weather and ability to get there. Or proximity to SpaceX's, recovery assets, should I say, right? So SpaceX obviously has, back when they were doing purely Florida recovery, they had two vessels, Megan and Shannon. Those were used to scoop up the Dragon out of the water. They had one based on the west coast of Florida, one based on the east coast of Florida. So wherever the weather was best, that's where they would splash down. For now, they only have one of those. One of those vessels has already gone out to the west coast, as we were talking about earlier. SpaceX will be switching from east coast to west coast, and west coast is in California, not west coast of Florida, right? So they only have one Dragon vessel remaining on the east coast of the United States, which is located on the west coast of Florida, if that makes sense. So all of the splashdown opportunities for Crew-9 were in the Gulf, and this one was selected just because that's where the weather was best. In fact, NASA actually pulled forward the schedule. Originally, they were supposed to undock today, I believe, but they actually undocked yesterday or very, very early in the morning because the weather is going to be deteriorating over the period of this week. The weather was better at the beginning of the week, so they expedited that return for Crew-9.
There we go. And yeah, they have set locations that they choose from, about 4 or 5 on each side of Florida, and then they see which one is the best weather, and that's where they put all of their assets. And this one happened to be in the northeastern part, so the Tallahassee, or northwestern part, excuse me, so the Tallahassee area. And I did see a couple of questions that were still scrolling by as we were doing this. So for the person who was asking about the training for the cosmonauts, they do get training on Crew Dragon. In particular, Aleksandr Gorbunov did do training for Dragon specifically. Not so much to operate it and fly it, but to understand the basics of it as a mission specialist. And if you want to know more about that, I actually interviewed him, and there's an article on NASASpaceflight.com, if you look through the archives, with that interview with him about his Crew-9 training. And in terms of the reentry, I also saw a question of, even though we don't get video, do they still get data back? Ryan, that plasma is pretty thick.
Yeah, so unlike Starship, Dragon is quite small, and even if they had a Starlink, like a Starlink terminal right on the nose cone, I think they'd still struggle to get data through that plasma. So that's really, with Dragon, I would be honestly very, very impressed if they could ever not have a blackout period.
Again, hopefully with Starship more, with the Starlink satellites, that might be able to happen. And again, we'll see if there's a potential future for Starlink on Dragon, but as of now, no ISS Crew Dragon mission has been equipped and using Starlink. We're now less than 10 minutes away. Ryan, what are the final steps coming up here for once they get through the blackout period?
So we are now, as you said, under 10 minutes to go. We are still in that communications blackout, so there is absolutely nothing coming from Dragon. No voice communications, no telemetry, no video, no audio, no nothing. Dragon is in a communications blackout that is scheduled to end at 21:51 UTC. That is in just over 3 minutes time. That should end at approximately net minus 6 minutes to splashdown on our clock in the top left of the screen. After that, we are expecting the deployment of the drogue parachutes. Those are the initial parachutes which help to slow the vehicle down to a velocity where they can then deploy the main parachutes. That's expected at 54 minutes past the hour, approximately 3 minutes before splashdown. Once those big 4 main parachutes are deployed, Dragon will then slow down as it gets into the thicker parts of the atmosphere. And fingers crossed, at 57 minutes past the hour, we should see a splashdown of Crew Dragon Freedom in the Gulf, just off the coast of Tallahassee.
Yes, hoping for those big, beautiful parachutes to deploy. One thing that they did mention they had started testing before, in particular Polaris Dawn, was the ability of, if some of the parachutes didn't fully deploy, to be able to use those Draker maneuvering thrusters to kind of help slow the vehicle down, as sort of Soyuz does with the soft landing burn, quote unquote. I say quote unquote because every astronaut I've spoken to said it feels like getting into a car crash at 30 miles per hour when they land in the steppes of Kazakhstan. So, but if all parachutes are open and everything looks good, it should be a relatively gentle touchdown. I'm sure it's going to feel a lot worse, though, after 9 months in microgravity. And look at this,
And
we
it
have
looks like
visual.
we have acquisition of video from the WB-57. That is a visual of reentry of Crew Dragon Freedom. 7.5 minutes to go until splashdown.
And we were talking about that being engulfed in the plasma. Now you can see what we were talking about there. There is a capsule inside that giant glow. This, of course, is an infrared view, though, from that WB-57 plane, about 19,000 feet above the waters of the Gulf there.
Looks like there's a few clouds. Oh, you can see there the clouds acting as a little bit of a filter. We might have just lost it there, but for a moment you could see the infrared being a little bit dimmer, giving us a little filter there into seeing the Dragon capsule. Maybe we've got a ground tracking camera here as well from around the Mexico area. Right now, if we remember that graphic NASA was sharing earlier on, we should be over the southern part of Mexico, kind of the border with Belize, that kind of area, soon heading over Cancun.
Right, and again, although they may not have comms with them and be getting data, this is a great sign that we have visual of the capsule going through. So far...
Well, when the clouds aren't in the way, there we go. We have visual of the capsule coming back down to Earth.
That is exactly what we want to see, though. So, fantastic sign. They also have tracking cameras aboard Megan as well, which is the recovery ship. So, especially after splashdown, we will see some of those views from Megan.
SpaceX, comm check.
So they're going to be checking for the comms.
The SpaceX.
They will continue to do those comms checks. Again, you can still see a bunch of plasma there.
4.16. Enjoying the ride.
Copy that, Freedom.
4.6 G.
Great
Did I
news
hear that
there
right?
from Commander Nick Hague reporting back.
We see a healthy flight computer. Expect automated chute deployment.
Freedom copies.
These are all good. These are all good calls from
Like we said before,
Mission Control in Hawthorne and Crew Dragon Freedom. So there we go. I think I also heard 4.6 Gs, which is, wow, that's intense.
More than 4 times the force of gravity pushing down on them, especially after all that time. But they are in specially customized
Expect
seats.
nominal altitude for drogue chute deployment.
we're about
That's
2
meant to
minutes
help
away from
That's meant to help absorb some of that impact on them. But the computers are operating exactly as expected. They're expecting the automated sequence. If something were to happen, they could manually deploy the chutes. But we are less than 2 minutes away from the start of the first set of parachutes coming out. Those are the drogue chutes.
Indeed.
And you
we
can
still
still
have visual?
We will hopefully see those, but you can see, even if it's not going through the plasma, you can see the glow on the infrared of how hot the underside of that capsule still is
Brace for
after
drogue
re-entry.
window.
And we have crew seat
we
rotation.
can see seat
They're
rotation
bracing
happening
for entry.
inside the cap.
Yes, they actually rotate the seats to make it more comfortable and brace their bodies for the splashdown. Similar to what they do to allow them to enter the capsule on the launch pad.
Indeed. So as a reminder, we should be seeing the drogue chutes deploy any second now, and the main chutes deploy in about a minute's time.
Again, all of the times say NET, no earlier than, because the computers on board Dragon are the ones that are making the call of when to deploy and when not to deploy. No matter what the timelines say. Look at this.
We have visual through the visible spectrum. There we go. That is a beautiful view of Dragon in freefall descending towards the Gulf. Fingers crossed we see those drogues any moment. There we go. There's the cover, and here come the drogues.
Drogue descent rate nominal.
That rate nominal.
You can hear the crowd here.
Visual on 2 healthy drogues.
Look at the speed
The
from
crowd
the
here
camera
very
pan.
excited as Dragon Freedom continues to make its way back to planet Earth.
There's onboard Dragon looking up at the drogues. Fully inflating there. Oh, amazing views. Again, you get a real idea of how
Next up, we'll
fast this
stand
thing is
by
coming
for
back.
the main deployment of the parachutes.
So yeah, we should be getting the mains deploying any moment now.
It's all
Those
coming from that
two-
WB-57 plane, it looks like.
Those 2 drogues will be shed, and they'll kind of pull out the 4 main chutes. You'll see what I mean in a moment, but those 2 drogues will be let go of, and the drogues will pull out the mains. Here we go. 4 mains now
4 healthy
deploying.
mains.
That view was from
Now, it's okay. They're going to reef like that for a little bit, which means they'll slowly inflate as they hit the air more. So it's okay that they're kind of bunched up for now. They have plenty of time for them to fully open up and help slow them down.
There we go. Looking like we've got 3 fully reefed, the 4th lagging behind a little bit, but it looks like we've got 4 mains fully expanded now, and that will slow Crew Dragon Freedom down to a safe, comfortable
We'll start to
splashdown speed.
hear Commander Nick Hague.
Comfortable
Copy
asterisk.
1,000.
As we heard right there, Commander Nick Hague will be calling
1,000
out
feet up.
the altitude of the Dragon capsule from
We're getting really close to splashdown. Again, it's not going to be the most gentle, given how fast they were going, how fast they still kind of are going, and their bodies readjusting.
But I have to say, personally, I would take a Dragon over a Soyuz or a Shenzhou any day.
Something about the traditional splashdown, that's for sure. Which we're about a minute and a half left of it, coasting on those parachutes, hopefully to touch down in the Gulf. And that looks like the view from Megan, the recovery ship.
Perhaps. Maybe a drone even.
Oh, it could be the drone that they deploy from Megan as well. They have that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a drone. There's no way there's a boat that's, floating that fast.
Good point.
Oh, and you can, there's smiles all around there from the crew. You can see the sunshine left to right. That's Butch, Aleksandr, Nick, and Sunny. They look in good spirits as they return back to Earth, splashdown in approximately no earlier than 45 seconds.
Look at that. Yeah, you could see the smile the second the light hit inside the capsule.
Beautiful, beautiful weather on the Gulf Coast of
400 meters.
Florida.
400 meters to go. And now you get an idea of just how much they've slowed down. The aerial view gave a crazy idea of the speed at which it comes down. And now in comparison, looking from this drone-based view, it is a lot slower, which is amazing to go from 17,500 miles per hour down to 0 in just under an hour.
Copy, 200 meters. Brace for splashdown.
Here we go.
Again, the NET in the top left, no earlier
As you can
than.
see there on your
It's
screen,
okay that it's a little
continuing to
after.
monitor progress of the Dragon spacecraft. And we're going to stand by for splashdown, located in the Gulf of America, off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida.
Here we go, folks. Crew-9.
And
Back to
Splashdown.
Earth.
Crew-9 back on Earth.
We'll wait for some words from the crew.
Freedom, splashdown. Good main release.
Copy, splashdown. We see main chutes cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sunny, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
It is an amazing, what a ride. I see a capsule full of grins ear to ear.
And the capsule looks to be in stable 1, which means upright. We'll listen for that official call out, but that appears to be stable 1,
And as
upright.
you can see on your
as
screen, we
expected.
have visual confirmation of splashdown. Dragon Freedom has returned home, and NASA astronauts.
System safety verifications are in progress. We'll report back when recovery personnel are en route.
Understand. And, we're in section 2, 4.800 landing response. And looking for your word on if it is necessary.
In
These
the
views
distance,
are
we can see the
absolutely
recovery
beautiful.
vessel making its way.
Copy, you're in section 2 for the environmental assessment in 4.800. That is not necessary today.
Understand. Raising button.
So we
There
will
you go.
continue to have communications.
And again, that's checking the environment inside the spacecraft. Of course, the concern is they use hypergolics to help control it. You don't want any hypergolic leaks or gases getting into the crew cabin. And you'll also notice many times now during this recovery effort, you'll see these sort of sniffer sticks that will be going around the capsule, in particular into those thrusters, to make sure that everything is vented out, drained out, and that there are no leaks, because the hypergolic fuels they use are extremely hazardous.
Indeed, and in the background there, I believe I've spotted 3 fast boats en route to Crew Dragon Freedom, and we have Megan sailing as well.
Copy, stable 1. We see the same.
That's what we were listening for. Stable 1 is the spacecraft is upright and in a very safe and completely expected configuration. It doesn't get more perfect than stable 1. Absolutely nailing the splashdown. And again, we finally have Nick, Butch, Sunny, and Aleksandr back on Earth. Butch and Sunny spending about over 250, about 280-ish days in space. Nick and Aleksandr about 230 days in space. Absolutely
Crew Dragon
spectacular.
Freedom very toasty at this point. I mean, just especially on the rear, just look how brown and scorched it is. But that's what Reentry does, people. This is why we have to invest in high-tech thermal protection systems.
There's a great view from
Recovery
above
personnel
of
should approach. Expect personnel
of the-
alongside in the next few minutes.
And now these guys, the first responders that come out here, they do quite the job. You will see them jumping into the water and onto the capsule you will see them doing a lot of work, again, safing it, making sure it's good to go, and then putting on all of the hinges, the attachment points, and the straps needed so that Megan can then scoop it up out of the water, place it onto a little donut kind of on the deck, and then roll it back to extract the crew. So that's still going to take some time to be able to do that. First and foremost is you see what I was talking about before, the sniffer stick, that sort of stick that they're pointing out. You'll also notice that they're wearing all of the hazmat materials and the masks there just in case. This is not it's not Harry Potter waving a magic wand, unfortunately, but it does kind of look like it. Oh man. Wonder if anyone was actually able to see that splashdown. I know Warren was asking earlier, does Mexico hear a sonic boom when Dragon goes overhead? I don't know if anyone would actually hear the sonic boom from this one.
I'd imagine that the atmosphere, even though it is, very, very rough for a re-entry in terms of the thermal regime, it's thin enough that any kind of sonic booms wouldn't reach. Or maybe there isn't even a sonic boom produced, because remember, supersonic is rugative. Mach 1 is rugative to the density of the atmosphere that surrounds you, so I don't know. Maybe there's a video in there. Are they actually traveling supersonic?
Oh no, you just volunteered to write it.
Oh dear.
Here's a question from Voxnor who's asking, is this the first use of this capsule? Crew-10's was the second flight. So how many times do we know has Freedom flown?
This is completing its 4th mission to space. It first flew the Crew-4 mission back in 2022, and it was then assigned to Axiom Mission 2 in 2023, in May of 2023. Earlier in 2024, in January, it flew the Axiom Mission 3, and this Crew-9, it's currently its most recent mission, of course, launching September of 2024, splashing down 6 minutes ago.
Yeah, its mission almost fully complete. And again, right now the crew will be inside there. It's not likely that we will see cameras from inside there just yet. What they will do now is, as they continue to check out the capsule, they will have private radio conversations with the medical team that is on board Megan, discuss any potential medical issues, how they're doing, how they're feeling. Are they experiencing any seasickness, which is a thing, as you see them kind of bobbing around, although the waters today super flat, which is a great thing. And then only once all of that is cleared and no one is losing their lunch, then they will allow the onboard cameras. So for now, we get these spectacular drone views. And you can see there in the back, that big white ship with the little black kind of hook on it. That is Megan. That is coming to scoop up the capsule. Of course, once these fast teams make sure everything's safe and then hook up the harnesses that it needs. We were talking earlier, this is the final recovery effort here on the east coast of the United States.
Were complete. They didn't find any of that upon those checks, so we'll continue to move through the timeline. Next up is a process called rigging, which you see happening right now on your screen. This is when a SpaceX recovery personnel actually works to climb aboard the capsule and work through procedures ahead of lifting onto the nest of the recovery vessel Megan. We heard it's going to be about 25 minutes or so until that lift actually takes place.
There you go. Didn't even need to explain it myself. But yes, you will see
Call will be
the
from the SpaceX flight surgeon on Dragon to Ground Private.
and that's what I was just discussing with that private medical call.
Yeah.
So this rear crane design that will be used to come scoop up the capsule, apparently its original purpose for the rear crane design is for buoy servicing. But in this case, they rig up the Crew Dragon, and you see the amount of physical effort to climb onto this capsule that, again, less than an hour ago was in space, and less than 15 minutes ago was engulfed in plasma. Climb on it and put hooks on it.
Yeah. That's quite a job that person has there.
And they do regular training as well out at sea. We've seen them do that training on some of our Space Coast Live cameras. You see them go out and come back for it, which our Space Coast Live cameras, by the way, it's our 24/7 feed, taking a look at everything going on in the port, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and Kennedy Space Center. And a reminder, everything you're seeing, this is just about 10 minutes after Splashdown. That's it.
Yeah. The intensity and the speed of these recovery efforts is very, very impressive.
And it's only gotten better over time. The fact that, again, you go from engulfed in a ball of plasma to on the boat getting medical checkouts, usually within an hour or so. It's impressive.
Yeah.
And while they do that, we did get a super chat here from Nathan, who says, I don't know whose idea it was to name this thing Dragon, but they need a raise and a high five. Oh, you know why it's called Dragon, right, Ryan? Do you know how it got its name?
Enlighten me, Sawyer.
It got its name because of the song Puff the Magic Dragon. I wish I was joking, but apparently that was the inspiration for the name of these vehicles, was from the song Puff the Magic Dragon. And the reason they're called Falcon, by the way, is because of the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars.
Contract.
The reason it's called Starship is because there weren't enough things with star in the name.
SpaceX, this is Freedom. We loud and clear.
Copy that, Freedom. Have you loud and clear as well, and Dragon to Ground is no longer private.
Understand, thank you.
So it looks
As
like
we
those
saw-
private medical checks have been completed and the comms have been opened up again, so we can now listen in. That is a view from Megan. We can just see Dragon on the horizon there. And that is the little foam ring I was talking about earlier. So Dragon will be scooped up by that big metal crane hook system and then placed onto that little foam ring. That is called the Dragon's Nest.
Very clever naming. Puff the Magic Dragon's Nest, yes. May have also noticed from that wire view, it looked like there was kind of a train track system. So what they'll do is this giant arm will lower down around Dragon. The team that's out there will clip it on, make sure it's secure. Then it will raise back up, place the Dragon capsule onto the nest, and then it will actually roll backwards up to the back portion of the boat. That is where they will have stretchers waiting for the crew. So you will see stretchers. You will see them come out in stretchers. Do not be surprised. That is a 100% normal occurrence for every long-duration mission crew return. And you could see everything getting closer. So far, so good. Can we send Dan out there to wipe their camera down? Here's a good question from Peter, who's asking, what are the main advantages between Crew-9 Reentry and Splashdown versus other methods used by other missions? I guess we can compare that to Starliner and Soyuz.
Well, the ocean recovery is, kind of the traditional form of recovery in the US. I guess we're just comparing, splashing down in the ocean versus landing on land. I guess one of the advantages on land is that you're immediately on land. You don't need to be airlifted anywhere, right? You don't need to sail your capsule back to shore. You have, in the case of Starliner, it's available right there at White Sands. In the case of Soyuz, it's available right there in Kazakhstan. In the case of Shenzhou, it's available right there in China, in the Gobi Desert. However, the advantage of ocean splashdown is it's a little bit softer, right? We don't need to have any sort of retro-propulsion, last-minute cushioning like we have on the Soyuz and the Shenzhou. We don't need any airbags like we do on Starliner. So maybe it's a little bit more comfortable for the astronauts, but I guess it just kind of depends what the specific operator decides to do. I would say there's advantages to both and disadvantages to both, but both have been proven to work. Soyuz has been flying pretty regularly for 60 odd years now, nearly 50 odd years. It's a system that's been proven, and so has water recovery.
Exactly. And SpaceX has plenty of marine assets already to begin with for the fairing recoveries and the booster landings. So they're not There are no strangers to these water landings, but they do it differently from the Apollo era, which is what Mark was asking, where during the Apollo era, they didn't worry so much about the capsule. The main thing was to get the crew. So they would send a helicopter out. They would lower a basket. My name is not Jaden, by the way. And the crew would get in and they would lift them up into the helicopter. That helicopter would then land on a nearby Navy ship on an aircraft carrier. This one, you see, it's a lot smaller boat than an aircraft carrier. And they bring the capsule and crew in one, as opposed to taking the crew out first. So it's a lot simpler than it used to be. Wow, again, the view is just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, these drone shots, NASA has done a fantastic job with this coverage. This is, incredible views.
And the lighting, too, the fact that it's nearing but not sunset on the eastern coast of the United States. Again, this a little bit south of Tallahassee, Florida, the capital. This is absolutely beautiful.
I'd also imagine it's easier to, recover your crew out of the capsule when it's kind of stable on the deck of a ship and not bobbing about in the ocean.
Yeah, that too. Let's see. Again, just stunning views. You see the people on the Dragon capsule. The best part is, again, when they're done, they will just swan dive into the water, basically. Jump off, and then hop back into their fast boats there, the little dinghies that you see. Ender Games is wondering, how do they keep the capsule afloat on the water? Brian, you want to take that?
Well, it's buoyant. I think is the simplest way to answer that. It is designed to float. If it were to sink, that would not be very good. So it's designed to float.
Exactly. It's, again, very similar to a ship in its design there, as you see. Now, you may have seen, like, on Apollo or even Orion's test flights, these sort of airbags that pop up. Those airbags have nothing to do with the spacecraft being able to float in the water. The reason that other capsules have those was in the event that it wasn't stable one. In other words, if it were to land sideways or upside down in the water and not be able to go upright, they inflate those little balloons, and that will help push the capsule upright so that they're not floating upside down in the water. So if you see those cushiony things, they're not to help it float, they're to keep it upright in the event it's not. Now, you mentioned this is the fourth flight of this one. Nick Smith is wondering, how many uses does a Dragon capsule have? I don't think we have a set full answer yet.
Well, in terms of what it can do, we've seen it fly to the station, we've seen it support an independent science mission with Inspiration 4, with Polaris Dawn, upcoming later this month perhaps with Fram 2, and we've also seen it within those missions. We have an EVA attachment called Skywalker, and we have a cupola attachment, which allows the crew on board to have spectacular views of Earth. So it can serve many, many different purposes. I guess if you want it to serve more purposes, you send SpaceX an email and say, hey, I'd like to go to space for a few days. What can I do with your vehicle?
I mean, you also have to have quite the pocket to be able to pay for it, but yes.
I mean, I'm assuming the person emailing SpaceX has the capital to purchase a mission from SpaceX, but,
Yeah, that would be nice. Let's see here. Nibbles, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships.
Thanks, Nick. I've got you loud and clear as well. We have completed our forward link transition.
And again, just the work climbing up on that, making an X, so to speak, with his body for the SpaceX capsule, climbing up there. And again, that's why it was so important to check those thrusters for any potential hypergolics, because you see their hands are essentially right next to those thruster slots.
Indeed. So it looks like they're doing a final little like wiping up, maybe.
Yeah.
I think you're going to need a bigger wipe, mate. But yeah, they're doing that final rigging there, so they can then get ready to hook onto Dragon and lift it onto Megan.
Here we go. Yeah, you see another attachment point being handed off to them. That giant rope there that will be added. That's probably more of why they were wiping that area down than anything.
Yeah.
And St. Miles asking, we kind of caught a glimpse of them on the way down with the answer, but will the Starliner crew be wearing SpaceX suits?
Indeed, they are. So the one was already available on station. There was a spare SpaceX suit on board the station. That was both Butch and Sunny tried them on, but that fit Sunny Williams the best. So that is the suit she was wearing on Reentry. And when they load the Dragon onto the recovery ship there, Megan, we should see Sunny exit the capsule there in her SpaceX suit. Butch Wilmore, on the other hand, SpaceX was provided the details for the different, his arm length and leg length and torso size, etc., all of his different body measurements, and they constructed a brand new suit for him, which was then shipped up to the station on a cargo mission, and that's what he wore on the way back down. So we should see Butch and Sunny in their SpaceX suits as they exit Dragon, maybe in about 10-20 minutes' time.
Yes, and I see people saying that they see dolphins. I've been looking. I see what looks like the reefing lines, the lines from the parachutes that have splashed down. I don't know if those things that you see popping up there are dolphins or not. If so, that is spectacular. Because I just saw something poke itself out of the water there. Those.
There we go.
Oh my gosh, they are dolphins. Look at that. Holy smokes, those are dolphins right around a capsule that just came back from space.
They are the first to welcome the crew back to Earth, and at the same time disobeying NASA's request that you don't get up close to the capsule. I'm sure there's a pass for the dolphins.
This is the first time I've ever seen dolphins around a return space vehicle. This is spectacular. Sorry, my words are kind of useless right now, but this is unbelievable. What a welcome home. You haven't seen anything other than the orbit of the Earth and the inside of your capsule and ISS for 9 months. Have some dolphins. Oh, goodness gracious. And again, this is the final splashdown on the East Coast. Don't know if you'll be getting those dolphins out on the West Coast. We'll see. Ethereal Swordsman saying, in high-power rocketry, there exists a parody of Puff the Magic Dragon called Chuff the Tragic Rocket. Apparently that means when rocket motors don't come up in pressure and just puff. Good to know. Thank you for the support and the message, Ethereal Swordsman. Good to see you here. And Biggs, how long does it take for crew to be cleared for home? So once they get out of the capsule, about how long till they're home, Ryan?
It all depends on how they're feeling, to be honest. So as we saw with Crew-8, the last crew rotation mission for NASA to the International Space Station, 3 of the crew members, they felt all right. They were checked out by the medical professionals on board the support ship, and they were flown straight back to, eventually making their way back to the Johnson Space Center within a little bit of time. However, for one of the crew members, they needed, for precautionary reasons, they needed a little bit of extra checkouts. So they were actually flown to a medical facility in Florida. So obviously it took them a little bit longer. Oh, look at those beautiful close-up views of the dolphins from NASA there. So it took them a few more days to be ready to return to Johnson and return home. So a couple of days, but it really ranges, maybe a day, a couple of days, all the way to a few days in case they need a few extra checkouts. But either way, both are nominal situations. Sometimes they just like to allow their bodies to recover a little bit more than others. You know, it's different for everybody, right? Coming back from space, some astronauts fare better with the ascent than the return. Some astronauts fare better with the return than the ascent. You know, it's all different, and it's, you know, I believe it's really kind of impossible to predict how some people will fare versus others when you're on the ground, because zero gravity affects different people in different ways.
By the way, EJ pointing out the appropriateness of you being on stream. I'm sorry, what's your social media handle?
It is at dpoddolphin.
Pro.
Pro, yes, pro. Even I can't remember it.
But yes, it has dolphin in it. Quite appropriate. Chris Hell with the
Carson.
support just saying, dolphins. Yes, now you can remember it. Steve Kalovic with $10 super chat saying, last time I experienced dolphins like this on a whale watching trip in Maine, they proceeded an epic level of losing lunch. Hope this trip goes better. Yeah, again, that's why they have their private medical discussions first, and why we are not allowed to listen into them. And Asimo with the $20 super chat with the very astute observation. Those aren't dolphins, they're Blue Origin spies. At least it's not the ULA sniper, which that's a way throwback for Space Geeks going way back to 2016, if you might remember. So next up in this, we actually should see everyone off of the capsule physically. You see the line being tossed from Megan that the person on board the capsule will grab and hook on. And then once that's hooked, they will jump off. And then that sort of hook that you see lowering there will hoist, and it will hoist the capsule with it.
There we go. You can still see some dolphins in the background as well.
Dolphin cam continues. Mark Potter is mentioning, because we said this is the final East Coast splashdown, was wondering why. It has to do with the reentry process, in fact. We were discussing earlier the Dragon capsule. There's another part of it that it launches with called the trunk, that you'll see the solar panels on it. It has some area for storage in the back, all unpressurized. Once it's ready to re-enter, it doesn't have a heat shield on that part, so they get rid of it. They jettison it. Where they jettison it would end up occasionally where there are people. It is washed up on shore in Australia. Potential physical pieces have been spotted crashing down onto land. So as a safety measure, to change when you jettison the trunk, you just change where you land. So as a result, they're switching from the East Coast to the West Coast for all recovery operations.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, the most famous incident, a huge chunk of the fin from the trunk.
5 minutes until capsule lift.
Great news there from SpaceX Core.
So there we go, 5 minutes to go until the lift. But yeah, there was a huge, kind of like a shard of the fin from the Dragon's trunk, which kind of pierced the ground at a farm in Australia. Luckily, no one was injured. But when you have debris of that magnitude making it through re-entry, it's a wise decision to change your trajectory so that that kind of debris is not getting anywhere near populated areas.
So much for 5 minutes until lift. Here they go.
They're doing it right now.
Look at this. We haven't seen a drone view of this procedure ever. I think this is a first at daytime. The aerial.
Yeah, this is really spectacular.
Do you see the drone operator, by the way, with the yellow hat? So as you mentioned, the Dragon's nest. It will settle down on top of that. You may see some water splash out after it has been sitting in the waters for about 30 minutes.
Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary, though. This is all nominal procedure so far.
You see there's the water pouring out.
Are completing final checks and stand by for translation to the egress platform.
Freedom copies.
Great wording, recovered on recovery vessel. But yes, they're aligning it, so that's why you see it kind of going up again. They want to get it centered on that cushion, and then that cushion is on a set of kind of rails that you see there, those two lines. That will then slide backwards to the back of the ship inside where those people are. There is a platform there. They will put a small little gap, a bridge between that and the hatch, and then the crew will be carried out. If they can walk out on their own, they will step onto a stretcher. They need a little more assistance getting used to 1G after being in microgravity for 6 to 9 months. Then they'll get some lift and be placed onto a stretcher where they have onboard medical facilities for them to be checked out. One of the other things that they do is help them with hydration. They will load up the crew members with fluids because that is another way that has been proven to help reacclimate astronauts to the Earth. And we also were able to see the person jumping off there before. But that is the capsule. That is the water. That is the capsule almost completely on the deck here. I saw Klopterberg was asking how many Apollo capsules sank. Thankfully, none of them. They also had those inflatable things.
The positioning wasn't quite right, so they are working on repositioning the capsule in the nest now.
Okay, copy that. Thanks.
Yep, they're trying to make sure it's exactly right to protect the capsule and the people inside so it doesn't slide off or anything, to get it in that exact right positioning. But they train for this. These people will do training exercises offshore in this exact event if something is slightly off-center, to make sure of it. I just wouldn't want to be one of the people swinging inside right now.
Yeah, I'm absolutely nothing to be concerned about. This is, even the alternative procedures are practiced. So this is again nothing to be concerned about. This is just shimming the capsule into the correct position so they can roll it forward on that rail system there towards the deck of the ship. Right. And by the way, in the response to the ones that sank, the only capsule that ever sank was Liberty Bell 7, which was Gus Grissom's. There's some whole debates as to what actually caused it. Basically, the hatch was ejected, water came in. They started to rescue the capsule first before rescuing Gus. They did eventually pick him up first. Liberty Bell sank to the bottom of the ocean, but was recovered as part of a massive recovery effort in the late 90s. 30 minutes since splashdown, and they are doing the final positioning of the capsule on the deck. Synthetic is are they going up again?
Up.
Third time's the charm, maybe. Looks
they like launches, just maybe not this time.
Yeah.
Synthetic was wondering, by the way, do they reuse the capsule or do they reuse the internal components, put them in a new shell? There's a lot of parts. You will see there are stickers and things and markings on the outside of Dragon to denote that it has flown before. So, yes, some parts are replaced, but Ryan, a lot of it is still the same capsule. Yeah, so as you can see there's some covers which we saw during the drogue deploy and the main chute deploy. There's some covers that cover these things that are, I think they're pretty much lost. They can't be recovered, right? But as we saw earlier, there were people scooping up the chutes. I don't think they reuse the chutes, but at least they collect them. And apart from that cover, that Dragon, give it a lick of paint, maybe a bit of a touch up on the heat shield.
Freedom, looks like you are settled into the nest now. Team is working through hypergolf sweeps.
That's pretty much what flies again.
And of course, they'll check the heat shield and all of that and any ablative materials. But they are in the nest. So they are finally in the cradle. Cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. So they'll check once again for those hypergolics. As we mentioned before, hypergolics are very caustic. They're very dangerous to humans in high levels. So they want to make sure that there's not an excess of gases that formed, which is possible after these returns, for the safety of everybody on board the ship as well. So a lot of people will still be wearing those gas masks and protective coverings, but once they do the final sweep and everything is clear, you'll see most of the people on the deck are just wearing regular face coverings and face masks, which is done because, keep in mind, the astronauts have not been exposed to Earth's atmosphere and human germs, except those that have been on the ISS for 6 to 9 months. So as a way, just as an extra precaution, while they're still immune, their immune system is still on the more vulnerable side, to be as protective as possible and allow them to acclimate first. So that's why you will see them still wearing face masks. Not so much a COVID thing.
Indeed.
We have a couple of bit of support here that I want to hit while we're waiting for that to slide back. Arrow X, we need a Dragon Freedom and Dolphin patch. Blake Sherwood, how many members are on the recovery team? A good amount. I don't know if there's an exact number.
Yeah, but several. I mean, we saw like 4 people on each of those fast boats, and there'll be I'd say maybe 20 people maybe on the recovery ship, so probably a good 40-ish people out at sea right now. And then of course all of the people back at Hawthorne, all of the people back at NASA Johnson, all of the people at the Cape supporting remotely through mission control and their roles in those facilities as well.
Right, you have the fast boat crew, you have the deck crew that you see here. They're spraying it down with water as well inside those cavities where the Draco thrusters are, it looks like, and doing the sniff tests. So yes, it looks like they're washing down the capsule. It's just to remove any residual hypergolics. You've got the people driving the ship. You've got command captaining the ship. You've got the medical crew that's back there. You have the NASA crew that's back there. Astronauts that are there as support. It's a busy ship. We don't even get to see all of them.
Yeah. In chat, we have Preamble confirming that we should remember the Dolphin crew as well. Obviously critical to the recovery operations here. Apparently there's a little over 40 people on board, so there's a lot of people.
That's for sure.
I'm also seeing some people in chat asking when the crew will disembark Dragon. We expect the Dragon, you might be able to just tell there's a couple of rails. So Dragon right now is in its nest. It's just been lifted onto the ship. Very shortly, Dragon will kind of be pulled towards the forward, pulled forward on the ship. It will then kind of connect with that little platform there, which is currently roped off in the foreground of the frame. After that, a few minutes later, we should expect the hatch to be opened. Crews will poke their head inside Dragon, give a thumbs up, make sure everyone's okay, and if so, they will then escort the 4 crew members out of Dragon and onto the deck. So depending how the crew are feeling, we might get some waves, we might get a thumbs up, or if they're feeling, I just want to get to the medical room, they'll just whisk them out on a stretcher.
And again, all of them will likely be placed on a stretcher. That is not anything wrong with them. That is completely normal. It will be the same for Nick and Aleksandr as it will be for Butch and Sunny. This is just standard procedure, so it's not that their extended stay in space has made them weaker or stronger than others. This is just standard safety protocols just in case for everyone after long-duration spaceflight, so do not be surprised if you see them taken out on a stretcher. GMG3, by the way, saying that Liberty 7's hatch pop was caused by a mechanical failure, not Gus's. They released info on it a couple of years ago. Oh yeah, I forgot, once they pulled the capsule up and they were actually able to examine it, they went, well, Gus didn't do it. He's scot-free, so. And then Roy saying the dolphins just came by to say so long and thanks for all the fish. Very clever. I like it. Let's see here. Again, them continuing to spray it down, not because it's dirty, but just as a safety precaution. And now you see them sliding the
Freedom
capsule closer.
Translation is in progress.
Copy. And feel it.
I would imagine they could feel it, and we can definitely see it.
Yeah. There we go. Coming up to dock, shall we say? There we go. Cushioning up to the little platform there, scooting forwards, and that just gives the crews on board easy access to the hatch of Dragon there.
Yeah, as opposed to a jet bridge at an airport where they move the jet bridge to the plane.
Side hatch opening now. Expect hatch open in about 2 minutes.
So there we go, everybody. 2 minutes until Butch, Sunny, Nick, and Aleksandr.
Uphill and downhill. Just really impressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. It's been an honor.
You see them putting the plugs in there to kind of close up all of those holes, as well as put the straps on so that the capsule is secured, because this capsule will now take a ride around the entirety of the Florida Peninsula for its return eventually to Port Canaveral, right near the Kennedy Space Center where it launched, or excuse me, right near Cape Canaveral Space Force Station where this one launched from, out of Slick 40.
Indeed, and we just heard there some final remarks from Commander Nick Hague speaking to SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, California, just signing off the mission there before the hatch opens up. So as I was saying, very shortly that hatch will open. Butch, Sunny, Nick and Aleksandr will be able to breathe in some fresh-ish salty sea air for the first time in 6 months for Nick and Aleksandr, in 9 months for Butch and Sunny.
There you go. And again, this hatch that you see has not been opened since it was closed on launch day. The last time that hatch was in an open position was on launch day for Crew-9 in September. To get on board the International Space Station, they used the docking adapter, which is inside that nose cone at the top. That was open while it was in orbit, and that was where the docking adapter was. So this hatch has remained closed that entire time.
I mean, the docking adapter is still there. It's just been covered up.
Yeah, not the easiest way to get out, especially since there's nothing to dock to. Might as well just use the door.
Yeah, indeed.
Stuart King is wondering, what is that heat shield made of that protects it?
I know what it's called, but it's a very kind of developed. I believe it's called Pika X.
It is.
Which is it's an ablative thermal protection system, which is kind of developed, sort of not entirely developed by SpaceX, but enhanced by SpaceX, should I say? So I believe it's based off an original design from NASA that SpaceX then brought in-house and kind of made their own version of for Dragon. It's essentially a carbon ablator, kind of. So there's some carbon in there and some other things as well. I'm trying to remember. I'm not Pika from NASA. I don't think is proprietary. I'm not sure if Pika X is proprietary because it was enhanced by SpaceX on a thing from NASA, which of course is all going to be public domain. So I'm not 100% sure on that. But either way, it's a carbon-based kind of composition there for its thermal protection.
Yeah, the Pika or Pika is phenolic impregnated carbon ablator. And the SpaceX one added an X because SpaceX.
And we're about to see hatch open. Here we go. One big tug. And there it goes.
Pops up and the crew is back. Butch, Sunny, Nick, Aleksandr, they have returned. The door is open. They're now going to go inside, check on them, make sure that they're all physically okay. And if all is well, they'll see if they'll allow cameras in. And there you go. They'll first take pictures of the seal. That will be used to help later to see how the spacecraft handled. Check for any sharp edges as well. And then next you'll also see them put in a special protector because of those sharp edges around the entry. Right now they are talking to the crew, and yeah, they'll take some pictures hopefully soon.
Yeah, we could see inside briefly there for a moment. We could see the support crew member who had just entered Dragon. On the left-hand side there, we could see Butch Wilmore very briefly. The other crew members, of course, inside Dragon as well, to Butch's left, our right, from the perspective of the hatch.
And there is that protective cover I was just mentioning being installed. And once that is good, again, they'll continue. They still have the person checking with the crew, helping them get ready to egress, as it's called. So get out of their seats and get onto the boat and officially end their mission. Except for the science that will continue afterwards, the health studies that will continue afterwards, all of which will be used to help enhance future spaceflight and make it safer for other astronauts to see how the body does after long-duration spaceflight.
Yeah. If you think 9 months is long, wait until we're sending people to the moon long term. Wait until we're sending people to Mars long term. These are going to be long missions in 0G and less than 1G environments.
Exactly. The moon is 1/6 Earth's gravity, Mars is 1/3, and of course everything else is micro. Next up will be the removal of the footrests too, which will allow easier access for them to get in and get the crew out. You can also see on the back left there in blue, there is always an astronaut representative there to be with them too. So you've got experienced astronauts there to welcome them back. And there is the official photographer coming in. And I'm sure in just a short while we will see the famous photo of all of them sitting in the capsule with the thumbs up. And that is the exact moment that is being taken right now, so you can see. And while they're doing that, I just want to thank a couple people here. Junar, slide to the left one time. Bideford, thank you again for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Very much appreciate that. We should be getting video now. There they are.
There we go. From left to right, that is Butch, Aleksandr, Nick, and Sunny Williams back on Earth.
Sunny had that huge smile that she always has. It was great to see. Sivian, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Raphael, thank you very much for the support. Fortunately, we don't have Alex on board to help translate. And then, if they land on the West Coast, does that mean they will launch from the West Coast or still get East Coast launches? Nope. All the launches will still be on the East Coast. They will just then refurbish the capsules and then transport them back over to Florida for the next launch, which isn't
Indeed.
unheard of. They do that all the time with fairing halves and with boosters.
And they did it with with Dragon version 1 for almost a decade, right? So for the first 20-odd commercial resupply services missions were with the original generation of Dragon capsule. They all splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. So we're actually that's actually kind of the norm for SpaceX, right? They only started doing this Florida splashdown operation with Dragon 2, and now they're saying, all right, it doesn't work out for our debris mitigation. Let's move it back to the West Coast.
There you go. So yeah, this is not new for them. It's kind of going back to the older ways. And those are the footrests coming out. All this is to make it easier for the crew to egress. Right now, they're kind of just, I don't want to say chilling out, but allowing their bodies to reacclimate and not overexert, I think is the best way to put it right now. So let the SpaceX teams do the work. Let their bodies continue to readapt to Earth's gravity. And this is the slide board that will kind of go in between to help get them out, to bridge that gap. So you will likely see the crew come out on that, and then likely moved onto a stretcher to be checked out in the medical bay. So far, so good. Also, I just noticed that the face with that open kind of looked like a Cyberman, just saying. I'm going to cut back to that other camera, see if I'm the only one. I can't be the only one that sees that. But anyway, the crew will be coming out very shortly. See all of everyone around it there. So next up will be that egress. And again, thank you to everybody joining us for the return here of Crew-9. We are very glad to have them home. And of course, there will be a post-launch press conference with details about the mission. We'll be sure to be in it as well. And of course, any major updates from it and any other major updates for all of the spaceflight missions will be posted on our socials. We are NASASpaceflight on Instagram, Facebook, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Check us out there as well.
You name it. We're on it.
See? Cyberman. Just calling it.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of you are also Starbase fans out there. If you didn't know, there's a lot going on at Starbase, and we do a weekly update on it. And in fact, that weekly update will be coming out pretty much immediately after the crew egress completes here. So keep an eye out for Starbase update coming up here today as well at NSF. You can see there that stretcher is on the left. Again, do not freak out. That is totally expected. This is not something special for Butch and Sunny for being there extra long. This is literally just a precaution for anybody returning from a long-duration spaceflight. Checking with the crew, making sure everyone's all good. They'd rather take their time and go a little slow than rush it, especially for the crew inside. This is as fast as everything went. This feels so slow, even though, again, under an hour ago they were in space. Taserface saying, when did Loki start working for SpaceX? I like it. Brandon Rivas. So we had pad ninjas. Are these folks ship ninjas? You know, I kind of like it. These are the ship ninjas now, although not all of them are wearing the ninja suits. Some are just wearing SpaceX sweatshirts.
Everyone kind of catching over, so perhaps we'll get the first crew member egressing shortly.
It looks like a suit coming out. We'll see who comes out first. a lot of that also comes down to their seat positions of who comes out first. So. Yeah, you see the legs there. And they are being slid out across that board like we were talking about. Give them a moment to let their legs kind of adjust, and then they will help them up onto the stretcher.
And here we
Is
go.
that Nick?
That
Or
is Nick
Alexander?
Hague.
Yeah, that appears to be Commander Nick Hague, if I'm seeing that right.
A wave from the commander, a thumbs up, another wave. Claps all around. Nick Hague is off to the medical bay. Smiles
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, Nick Hague, in case you didn't know, has had quite the experience getting into space. His first space flight aborted mid-flight on Soyuz MS-10. So his first flight was quite adventurous. Second flight, they did go up against Soyuz MS-12. And now Nick getting a chance to ride in Crew Dragon. And you see again the stretcher returning. You'll also notice there's a little cutout in the stretcher. That is similar to the molded shape that they have in the seats, the seat liners that they have inside. So to make it more comfortable for their spacesuits as they get lifted in.
So if they brought Nick out first, where I'm going to assume it's either going to be Sunny or Aleksandr out next. Perhaps it'll be Aleksandr, because we of course have those two side seats, which Butch and Sunny are in, and then Nick and Aleksandr were in those two center seats. Typically the commander and pilot's position, but of course this mission did not have a pilot. We only had a commander and 3 mission specialists.
Exactly. MS-1 Aleksandr did launch aboard Crew-9. Butch and Sunny, of course, launching aboard Starliner back in June. The decision made in August for them to stay aboard the ISS and come back home with the Crew-9 Dragon, which launched in September. This capsule has been at the space station with Nick, Aleksandr, Butch, and Sunny on station since September. So it had been there all the way since September, waiting for the Crew-10 to launch so that Crew-9 can come home. Crew-9, of course, now including Butch and Sunny. So this capsule has been there the whole time, and now it is finally home.
Our next crew member has Egress Dragon. I believe that is Aleksandr. We'll get a close-up, fingers crossed, shortly.
Yep, I see the
that is
Roscosmos.
Aleksandr. Indeed. A little bit of help. We've got smiles from Aleksandr. Not unexpected.
And the thumbs up. That's his first spaceflight, by the way. So this is his first return to Earth.
Smiles and waves all around.
And next, probably 2 of the most anticipated returns since Prince.
You can have that one, Sawyer. You can. No idea. No idea.
All right. Anyway, yes, we have Butch Wilmore, Sunita Williams are the next ones up. Again, we'll see what order they do it in. There's no specific order. Yes, people call me out on my age. Thank you. And again, they're taking their time. All of these crew members have been in space for an extended duration. The 2 who previously left for 6 months, Butch and Sunny for a little over 9 months. And again, they will receive the exact same exit treatment as the other 2. So they will be slid out on the board, helped onto the stretcher, and brought back into the medical bay for post-flight inspections, post-flight tests, as well as fluid loading. So basically helping to rehydrate them to prepare the body for gravity again. And of course, taking extra time to talk to them. They all looked happy and smiles, but you never know who gets seasick. And it has happened many times where people will... I've read books and talked to astronauts where they get off of a spacecraft, away from the cameras, they smile, and then there goes their rehydrated dinners. So it's not unusual. It's not. It's all completely normal.
Looks like we've got the next crew member getting ready to egress now in just a moment. See the suit barely through the hatch there. Of course,
Looks like you
many,
see a
many
helmet,
supporting crew members.
Almost definitely see the helmet there.
Taking their time as expected.
Yep, crew health is most important. So they'll do whatever it takes to make it as easy a transition as possible. And from what I've heard, it is not easy.
Sliding
And
out,
there's
Sunny Williams.
There's Sunny with a big
wave.
smile and wave to the camera. And again, as they do with all astronauts, an assist back onto the stretcher. That's the first time that her legs have had to work for 9 months, essentially holding up her body weight.
Sunny Williams back on Earth, pilot of the crew flight test for Starliner, returning home as a mission specialist on Crew-9.
Going up in one vehicle, down in another. So now, Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore, who's about to come out, have all flown on 4 spacecraft, being Space Shuttle, Soyuz, going up on Starliner, and then coming back on Crew Dragon. And Butch, obviously excited to get out. The stretcher isn't even back yet, and he's already slid out the capsule.
He's eager to make his way home. Probably get back to his lawn. I heard he likes mowing his lawn.
And they've made it home for next Christmas.
And there we go. On the stretcher, Butch Wilmore, commander of the crew flight test.
And there we go, folks. That is an empty capsule now with the safe return of 4 astronauts. You see
Double
all the
thumbs
applause
up from
there.
Butch Wilmore.
Yep.
Interestingly, just to bring something up very quickly, the spare suit that Butch Wilmore the suit that was delivered to the International Space Station on a cargo mission, that's what Butch Wilmore was wearing. It didn't have his name on it. However, the suit that was already on the station, the quote-unquote spare suit that fit Sunny Williams the best, that had Frank Rubio's name on it. So just for those of you who don't remember, Frank Rubio is a NASA astronaut who launched on a Soyuz and landed on a Soyuz, but the 2 Soyuz were different spacecraft because the Soyuz he launched on, I believe, had a coolant issue, and Roscosmos were unsure if the conditions inside of the Soyuz would be comfortable enough for an astronaut return a few years ago. So they sent up another Soyuz, and Frank Rubio's mission was actually extended by 6 months. So, unlike this mission, that mission didn't actually receive a lot of attention in the media. Either way, that looks like a spare SpaceX suit that was sent up for Frank Rubio in the event that he needed to return on a SpaceX vehicle, and that's the suit that Sunny is wearing.
Right, and in fact, Frank Rubio, as a result of that delay, has the record for the longest space flight of any American at 371 days. Butch and Sunny coming in, I believe, around 200, a little under 280, if my math is right. So about 1 hour after the crew is home. Well, on the medical bay of the ship.
On the medical bay of the ship, but yeah, personally, I find that very interesting. So it's good to see everybody home here. Live views from Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. Mission success all around. Make sure to stay tuned to all of the all the things. This Week in Spaceflight, socials, website, NASASpaceflight.com, all of the things. We'll be bringing you coverage in various forms of the next steps. As Sawyer, you said earlier, there is, of course, going to be from NASA a post-launch conference. We'll make sure NSF is represented there. We'll be bringing you all the latest details because although they're back on Earth, there's still some steps going forwards. The crew need to make it back to land and then onwards to NASA Johnson and then finally reuniting with their families and friends.
But don't go anywhere. This stream will automatically redirect you to the premiere of Starbase Update. All of the latest happenings going on at Starbase, and there's a lot that's been going on. So stay tuned. You don't even have to leave. We'll send you right to it. Really quickly, let me thank Drew Nar, wibbly wobbly astronauty stuff. I like the Doctor Who reference. Also with the $5 down payment for a Pad Ninja onesie. I think Alicia was saying we need pajamas on the Crew 10 launch. Biggs, I'm an astronaut, get me out of here. Ooh, that'd be a good TV show. Ryan Caton, thank you for joining.
Wonderful as always. Unexpected, but you know, when there's something to show, NSF turns up.
We try. And I've been your host, Sawyer Rosenstein. As mentioned, I'll be trying to tune into that post-launch, post-Splashdown press conference as well, and we'll update you on all of the NASA socials. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Welcome back home to the 4 people that just came back on Crew-9. Nick, Aleksandr, Butch, Sunny, welcome back. Have a great one, everybody, and we'll see you over at the premiere of SVU.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.